future generations with a 150-year estimated time frame. Arguably,
they said it was impossible. That something so massive, so ancient, so deliberately complex, simply shouldn't exist. And yet, there it was, buried beneath layers of time, hidden on a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, quiet, silent, and waiting. Göbekli Tepe. For years, it was a name whispered in the shadows of academia, a site so old that it shattered the known timeline of civilization. But just when we thought we were beginning to understand its secrets, the earth beneath it stirred again, and what archaeologists found could rewrite everything we know about who we are, where we came from, and just how far back the roots of human history truly reach. On a remote hill not far from the Syrian border, under the hot Anatolian sun, something extraordinary has begun to emerge. Beneath layers of sediment and time, archaeologists believe they have uncovered a second complex of massive stone pillars, silent sentinels standing watch over a forgotten age. It may sound like just another discovery, but it isn't. Because this isn't just another circle of ancient stones. This could be something far more, a second temple, a second center of power, a twin to the already mind-bending Göbekli Tepe complex. And if that's true, then everything we've believed about early human civilization may be wrong. You see, the story of Göbekli Tepe has always defied explanation. For decades, researchers focused on one area of the site, a cluster of stone enclosures crowned with towering T-shaped pillars. The carvings etched into these monoliths, foxes, serpents, birds, and ghost-like human figures, spoke of a world shaped not just by survival, but by symbolism, ritual, and belief. But now, new ground-penetrating radar surveys, combined with the latest excavation data from 2025, suggest something even more staggering. Another ring of these pillars has been unearthed on the northern side of the hill. Provisionally named Enclosure J, this new discovery could double the ceremonial footprint of Göbekli Tepe, expanding it from a singular marvel to a sprawling sacred landscape. What archaeologists are suggesting is that this wasn't just a single site, it was a complex, a network of temples, each echoing the other in purpose and precision. The symmetry between Enclosure J and the original enclosures isn't just architectural, it's almost spiritual. The layout appears to mirror that of enclosures A through D, hinting at a dualistic symbolism woven deep into the stone, perhaps representing opposing cosmic forces, life and death, light and shadow, the heavens and the earth. But how could this be? How could people, nomadic hunter-gatherers living over 11,000 years ago, possess the knowledge, the organization, the sheer willpower to build not one, but two monumental sites that required hundreds of laborers, intricate planning, and astronomical precision? The pillars themselves are carved with an eerie familiarity, massive, stylized human forms, some reaching over 16 feet tall. Each one anchored into the earth by stone bases that archaeologists now believe may represent an early understanding of seismic stabilization. This land is no stranger to earthquakes, and yet these ancient builders appear to have anticipated that, engineering their spiritual spaces to endure. And perhaps even more curiously, the new structure's stone surfaces have shown signs of pigmentation, traces of mineral-based color still clinging to the ages. This suggests that these were not drab, gray monuments lost to time, but vibrant places full of symbolic color. Some experts are even exploring the possibility that psychoactive plants may have been used in ceremonies held here, implying that altered states of consciousness might have played a role in the rituals of these long-lost people. If true, it would place Göbekli Tepe among the earliest examples of sacred architecture designed not just to impress, but to transform the human experience from within. What's even more astonishing is what lies beneath. Directly under one of the main pillars of Enclosure J, radar scans have detected a perfectly cylindrical cavity, about a meter in diameter, lined with stone. It isn't natural. It's deliberate. Some think it might have been a foundation vault, a hidden chamber designed to hold symbolic offerings, sacred relics, or something far more mysterious. In ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, it was common to bury sacred objects beneath temples or pyramids, gifts to the gods or anchors of power for the structure above. But this? This would predate those traditions by thousands of years. If the void beneath Göbekli Tepe's pillar was indeed a ritual deposit, it suggests the builders of this place were not only architects and astronomers, but spiritual engineers. They were crafting something far more profound than shelter, they were building portals between the earthly and the divine. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because the real mystery, the one that's sending shockwaves through the archaeological world, isn't just about what was built, but where it points. As the dust of millennia settles back over the stones, a deeper truth begins to rise, one that challenges not just our understanding of Göbekli Tepe, but of civilization itself. The stones aren't just relics of an ancient past, they're the voice of a people we thought couldn't have existed. And they're speaking louder than ever before. For centuries, the story of humanity's rise has followed a clear, comforting arc. First came survival, then farming, and only after agriculture did we build temples, cities, and society itself. But Göbekli Tepe shatters that timeline. These structures, immense, intricate, and impossibly old, were crafted not by farmers or kings, but by hunter-gatherers. People without permanent homes, without agriculture, without even pottery. Yet capable of organizing hundreds of laborers to quarry, transport, and raise multi-ton pillars in careful symmetry. It shouldn't be possible. And yet it was. The construction alone is staggering. Each central pillar weighs between 10 and 20 tons. Moving just one would have required dozens of coordinated individuals, ropes, sleds, and a level of logistical planning that rivals modern project management. But the builders didn't stop at one. They did it again. And again. Across enclosure after enclosure, now possibly more than 20 across the hill, each one laid out with intention, orientation, and reverence. We once assumed that such effort required agriculture, that only the food surpluses of farming could feed the labor force necessary to build something so grand. But the builders of Göbekli Tepe flipped that idea on its head. They built before they farmed. Their sacred need to construct, to connect with something larger, may have actually come first. It wasn't food that gave rise to temples, it was belief. And belief is written all over this landscape. Not just in architecture, but in symbol and stone. From the earliest carvings of wild boars and vultures to the later appearance of humanoid forms, Göbekli Tepe seems to capture a spiritual evolution. A shift from the worship of nature and the animal world to something more introspective, toward ancestors, gods, or perhaps something else entirely. One of the most enigmatic changes over time is the increasing anthropomorphism in the pillar designs. The iconic T-shapes, once assumed to be abstract, now seem unmistakably human, arms and hands carved in low relief, often folded neatly across a belly. Some wear belts. Others display animal motifs. And always, the same reverence in their construction. It's as though these stones weren't just structural, they were ceremonial avatars, embodiments of spirits, deities, or ancestors. And these carvings are not isolated. When researchers compared the motifs of Göbekli Tepe with nearby sites like Karahan Tepe and Navali Kori, they found haunting echoes. The same H symbols etched into stone in the same positions, the same animals, the same enigmatic human forms. In Karahan Tepe, a recently unearthed 2.3-meter seated figure, phallic in imagery, serene in posture, bears a striking resemblance to statues and reliefs found at Göbekli Tepe itself. This is no accident. This is a language. A symbolic, ritual code passed between sites, across distances, generations, and beliefs. These weren't isolated communities working in parallel. They were connected, spiritually, ideologically, and perhaps even physically. The idea that Göbekli Tepe stood alone is rapidly falling apart. What is emerging instead is the outline of an entire network of linked ceremonial centers across the early Mesopotamian region, each built by communities who may have shared not just symbols, but calendars, rituals, and spiritual responsibilities. Some researchers now believe Göbekli Tepe wasn't a lone temple on a hill, but one node in a sacred grid. Pilgrims may have walked from site to site in procession, following the seasons or celestial cycle. Perhaps the second enclosure now being uncovered, enclosure J, was part of this greater pattern, its mirrored symmetry echoing a duality present not just on the hill, but across the landscape. And here, the sky begins to speak again. Because as archaeologists and archaeoastronomers map these sites, not just Göbekli Tepe, but Karahan Tepe, Navali Kori, and others, a pattern begins to form. Not random. Not accidental. A pattern that some believe mirrors the heavens. Göbekli Tepe's enclosures, when charted, appear to form an equilateral triangle. And the newly discovered complex may be extending this into a larger geometrical alignment. Could these sites, separated by miles, be arranged to echo the constellations above? The idea may sound fantastical, but the alignments are striking. Researchers have proposed that the central pillars of both complexes align with Deneb, the brightest star in the Cygnus constellation, or perhaps Sirius, burning brightest in the night sky. Even the galactic center has been suggested. What does this mean? Were these builders mapping the heavens onto the earth? Were they trying to draw down the stars, to anchor their mythologies in stone? We may never know for sure, but what we do know is this: these were not primitive people. They were astronomers, architects, artists, engineers of the sacred. And yet, the deepest mystery lies not above, but below. Because beneath that newly discovered pillar, beneath the heart of enclosure J, something else rests. Something ancient. Something hidden. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed a curious void beneath the central pillar. A cavity. 1 meter wide. Perfectly cylindrical. Lined with shaped stone. It doesn't appear to be natural, and it isn't accidental. It's a feature, deliberate, centered, and precise. What could it have held? A foundation deposit? Sacred relics? Human remains? In ancient Egypt, in Mesopotamia, even in Greece, temples often held offerings buried beneath their foundations, tokens of favor, prayers locked in stone. Could Göbekli Tepe, built long before those civilizations ever existed, have been the first to conceive such sacred architecture? Did the builders place something in the earth not just to bless the space, but to bind it? Some scholars now believe these pillars may have marked burial spots, though no remains have yet been confirmed. But the idea is chilling, that beneath the sacred stone, beneath the sky-facing symbols, may lie the dead, ancestors, shamans, or figures of spiritual power. If true, it would change everything. It would mean Göbekli Tepe was not just a temple, but a tomb. Not just a place of worship, but a bridge between worlds. And if so, then we must ask, who were they building it for? Who was meant to walk between the stones, read the stars, and speak to the ancestors hidden below? Because this is no random site. This is a place where myth, memory, and monument converge, a place where the lines between history and prehistory blur into something older, deeper, and infinitely more mysterious. And the ground still holds secrets. Because only a fraction of Göbekli Tepe has been uncovered, less than 10% of the hill has been excavated. Dozens of anomalies still pulse below the surface, waiting. Klaus Schmidt, the man who first unlocked the site's significance, once suggested there could be 20 enclosures or more hidden beneath the earth. And if the second complex is real, if enclosure J is verified, then that may just be the beginning. The hill may be covered in temples, connected by invisible lines of faith, geometry, and time. The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes, we've barely scratched the surface. This second complex, enclosure J, may only be one of many still waiting beneath the soil. Ground scans have already revealed dozens more buried shapes across the 8-hectare mound. What if every one of them holds its own story, its own alignment, its own symbols, its own sacred chamber hidden beneath a central stone? And what if Göbekli Tepe wasn't just one site, or even one culture's creation, but the crown jewel of a forgotten network? A sacred circuit of ritual centers that stretched across Mesopotamia, built by people we've long underestimated, people who tracked stars, built with purpose, and passed down a symbolic language older than the pyramids. The shocking truth is this: the builders of Göbekli Tepe weren't just carving stone. They were carving memory, into the earth, into the sky, and maybe even into us. So the next time someone tells you that civilization began with farming, or that history is a straight line from primitive to advanced, remember the hill that shouldn't exist. And no, we are still uncovering who we really are.